You're listening to a Pubhouse Network podcast for developers by developers.
Okay, so hello and welcome to Stack Podcast episode number 75, recorded on October 18th, 2024. I am Kito Man. I am your host, and our two co-hosts. So today we have Josh Juno and Daniel Hinojosa. They're both here. And we also have a wonderful special guest who we'll introduce in just a minute. We have finally recorded again. We're starting to get a slow cadence going. So hopefully we'll get back into our monthly podcasts with experts joining us as they are available. Let's see. What have you guys been up to? We recorded like 2 months ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anything new going on, Josh?
Just enjoying the start of the school year and soccer games galore and cross country. So it's going well, just keeping busy with that. And then, of course, if you are looking at the video of this recording, you can see my background. Those are the Northern Lights. I took that picture in my backyard last week, and they were pretty amazing. So the sky has been nice to watch at night lately.
I've been meaning to look for that, and I keep on forgetting, unfortunately. I have some app that reminds me, and then I forget. So it's not very useful, I guess.
Yeah. I used to like using the Star app to go up and look at the different things, but I haven't used that for a while.
That, yeah.
But it's pretty neat.
That one's cool.
Yeah.
All right, Danno, what have you been up to?
I don't even want to say. Just I've had a hard week. My dog I had to put to rest, but she was 14 and a big Doberman, so I think she had a good full life. But still, it eats at me. And I was doing I was planning to do a security workshop for my architectural patterns. Although, like, some of the things I was talking about aren't necessarily patterns, but things about how the keys work and how TLS works and other things like that. It was pretty exciting. JWT and all the different things that you need to know for communication standards and security standards and what SBOMs are. So ready to go, but kind of ready to go, but once my dog was just staring off to nowhere, it just made things really hard. So so kind of tough, but
sorry to hear about that.
I'll do it again. I'll do it again in a heartbeat. So just don't know when, but I think adopting dogs is good for any developer. That'll be my pick if I don't come up with one later.
Dog.
You have a dog, have a pet, have someone that takes you off the keyboard is always a great thing. So I'll miss her, but we'll probably get another.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't say I have something interesting to say that I've been doing lately. We have been doing the soccer thing. My youngest is actually in 8th grade, and in my county, you can go to different high schools. It's not like you go to one high school. There's all these different choices. So I feel like we're doing college applications because we're like touring high schools and like filling out paperwork and like this is not good for an 8th grader to have to go through all this trouble.
Yeah, lots of choice.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's good and bad, you know what I mean? So we're doing that, and I'm keeping busy with a couple different clients. Still working on speaker tracks, which you can find at speakertracks.com.
Nice.
So we're slowly still working on that, and hopefully I'll get an actual beta out soon. So that's about it. And I will say, I still, have been going to conferences, although I seem to have missed out on the fall group. I just forgot to submit stuff, so I went nowhere this fall. But in the what was it, January of last year, I met this fellow named Nilanjan Raychaudhuri. I know I butchered that, but I tried.
Raychaudhuri.
That's good. Raychaudhuri. Yeah, close.
Yeah, it's close, but not cigar. Anyways, he was also speaking at that conference. You did a workshop there, didn't you?
I did one on large language models.
Right. So I was like, oh, hey, this guy's in AI. What's he talking about? So we were talking about company that he's building called Tublian. Recently we've been chatting, and I was like, we should have him on. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to call you Nil because I just think that's the coolest nickname ever. And thank you so much for joining us. We've also had a chance to work with you guys, people at your company a little bit on to help get some contributions to the Jakarta EE tutorial and stuff, which has been great. Actually, this morning we're spending some time updating the README because I was like, if I'm thinking if I'm not like if I don't know about Java and everything, I'm not sure this is going to be easy to follow. So
you need to add more issues though.
I know. That's the next thing. I figured I would get to the point where people could set it up first and then add issues, But welcome. We will still do some news and stuff, but I think it'd be cool if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, because if you go to LinkedIn and look him up, you're not going to find a bio. It's just going to say
he's a mysterious man. That's
yes.
So I'm a builder and operator. I'm pretty hands-on, but back in days I used to do lots of consulting and programming kind of jobs. I'm very interested in programming languages. So one of the languages I got very interested in called Scala. I actually wrote a book about this too, called Scala in Action.
Oh, you wrote that one? Oh, cool.
Yeah, so when I picked up Scala, nobody was talking about that language, and people thought I was crazy. But I did bet on it, and that paid off really well because I got an opportunity to roam around the world, not to mention work with the person who actually created the language, Martin Odeski, joined his team and doing some amazing stuff. Anyway, so I guess we're going to be talking about that a lot. But fundamentally, Tublian is kind of started as my side project or the passion project to give back to community, because I'm a self-taught programmer. There are lots of things I did to hack the system. I thought those will be an useful sort of design patterns that I can package in a product and sell it to people. Not sell it, essentially provide help to others. That's what the kind of genesis, the beginning of Tublian platform.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I definitely want to get a better handle, because I think your mission has evolved a bit over time, I think. Or maybe not your mission, the way that you're achieving your mission, maybe.
Yep.
So, all right, cool. All right, so we are going to try something new today, which is try and not talk for 2 hours. So
Boo! Boo! No, I'm just kidding.
Feel free to hit us up on Twitter or X or Mastodon or whatever if you have comments. We're at Stack Podcast on both platforms. So we'll see how it goes. But we're going to do the news, and we'll do it quicker than normal, and then we're going to talk to Neil and then wrap up. So let's get into it, guys. I thought about getting cool sound effects to throw in here, but I didn't. So we'll just have to pretend.
News, and then do like an air horn. And then that'll do it. Yeah. Annoy the listeners.
Maybe next time. All right. So the first item we have is just an industry news item. This is something we meant to mention in the last episode, so it's not really that new. But oh wow, my link just did not work because there's a typo in the URL. Well, anyways, James Gosling is retiring. For those who don't know, he is the what we call the father of Java. So he was the main person behind the initial version of the compiler and the language. For the last few years, he's been working quietly at Amazon. I'm not really sure what he's been doing there, but he has been there for a few years, and now he's moving on to his next chapter in life. So, it's kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, I was just going to mention. I think for the most part, he's helped me pay for my house and car. So if I ever see him, I'm probably just going to tell him that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're right. He deserves it. So.
He's on the NetBeans user list because he's been an avid NetBeans user for a long time, I believe. And so it's always nice to see him comment on the new releases and such that he's trying out and testing before they go live.
Well, that's awesome.
It is.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, so that's the first topic. Next we have this was yours, Danno, right? This White House paper.
Yeah. No, it was released a while back, and the one of the things that was controversial within the tech space. This was from the White House. I'm trying to take a look at the date, February 2024, so it's been out a while. But just to sum up, the controversial point was that computer languages should have memory management, and languages that do not, where you have to, do your own malloc and free and handle all that situation yourself, is prone, obviously, to errors and a cybersecurity concern. So some of the pushback, of course, was happening with C++ community, and of course, C community to that. But I think they were either working on something or releasing something that has automatic memory management
Oh, really?
coming up here as well. Yeah, I don't know if it was because of this or they were already on the road to doing that. Not sure, but just something I think everyone should know about.
Yeah, and just in case it wasn't clear, this was a paper from the White House. It's called "Back to the Building Blocks: Path Towards Secure and Measurable Software."
Yep.
So I guess it's just their guidance about, what to do. I don't think it's binding or anything, but
Right.
but yeah.
So I'm looking at the document now, and it does mention things like open source. And have you gotten into any of that narration and what they're talking about with respect to open source? Because they mentioned Log4Shell and how some things can be,
Oh, I didn't
vulnerable.
Yeah. But yeah, those ones are I'm interested kind of like in this topic. This is where S-bombs are coming in, just because this is your supply chain and where things can be injected. I'm not, and I think there's the supply chain as you're developing, and then there's the supply chain of software that uses a particular library after it's been released. So I think the XV, I think it's called XV or something like that, the Unix one that was used for encryption. Someone had socially engineered their way into it to build trust, and then afterwards they started sneaking in code that made that vulnerability. So in that supply chain, it was social engineering. But Log4j, I don't think they intended to have this vulnerability. It was just released, and it was through JNDI.
And it was out for years before it was exploited too.
Oh yeah, really? Wow, okay.
Yeah, long time.
So that was released, but then countries were like, "Oh, we know about this, and we're going to use the hell out of this." And so, someone had like some data, and I forgot where that was. I'll try to look for it, but it was data that sought to use that exploitation as fast as possible, and that became a military thing on how can you attack a particular country using that Log4j shell, which I thought was,
Really?
yeah, like
That's
people
not good.
were on it fast. That's a
I
scary world
remember
out there.
Christmas 2021 was pretty rough because we were all patching our machines,
And
Yeah,
patching our systems.
it was
yeah.
a big deal. So
Nilanjan, were you caught in that the Log4j anything
No,
on your end?
I know about that, but no.
No, you weren't. Yeah. A friend of mine who works, I'll just say, just works at a fairly big corporation, just had hell trying to patch that up. And I was asking about CI/CD because I would think that if you have good testing and good CI/CD, that you probably wouldn't suffer that much. I don't know if I'm naive in that statement or not. I think there were some other concerns, but
you
surely
mean
that
in
would have
terms
helped.
of, well, you also can have
Uh,
like third-party dependencies and stuff. I think that's where things got hairy.
Right. Yeah.
Is any
Yeah.
company behind Log4j? I mean,
No, it's just
who
Apache.
manages it?
Yeah. I
Apache.
think it's just purely open
And I
source.
don't
And I
think
remember that reminded me the whole issue with open source and some of the challenges we faced when we started Scala and Akka, right? There are not many financial support and people doing voluntarily and expecting them to fix bugs in an hour or so. All the challenges there.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much we all depend on those tools. But
Yep, and it's usually just
I mean, how big is Log4j team? Is it 2 guys, 1 guy? How
It's
big is the
probably.
team?
I remember looking at the CVE stuff. It looked like there were maybe 2 or 3 people that were.
That's
Main people,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
not that many. But it's
I'm
not something that gets
I
revved that much. It was considered a pretty mature piece of software, you know?
right.
So,
Still, so critical though, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think gosh, I don't know where we're going to be headed, because I do truly believe in open source. I do believe it's a better secure software because everyone's eyes are on it. But not everyone's eyes are on everything, and I think that's the issue as well,
Yeah,
as
but
to
you
who's
know,
looking.
if it's out there, that means that something, whether it's a person or a process, can look at it. I think that does still help, you know.
Right, right,
I've noticed there's this company that I've worked with before called Infragistics. They do UI components.
Mhm.
I was running across their stuff recently. I noticed they had some web components because I'm really into that as a platform for UI components. And but their source is now on GitHub, even though it's a commercial product. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. It's like license, it's a commercial license. You can play with it, but it's on GitHub. And that company in particular, even like back in the day when everything was closed source, they would make their source code available to people who bought it. So I think they're just figured, well, you know, if you're going to use it, you're supposed to pay for it. So you might as well make our source available.
I see.
So, all right, let's move on to the next topic. I think you had this one, Josh. Jakarta EE.
Yep, sure did. So the Jakarta EE 12 release plan is out there. It's not been out there for too long. This has just kind of begun, but now that Jakarta EE 11 is just about to be released, right? It's not quite released yet, but I would say within the next, maybe by the time you hear this, it
At the
will be
rate we're going,
released.
probably so.
Yeah, but anyway, if you're interested, the release plan draft does have some nice things in it, and you know, mentioning lots about the TCK release milestones and things like that. So I put the link in the show notes there, so go and take a look. I'm not gonna, you know, read it out loud here, but very interesting stuff if you're interested in Jakarta EE.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, one of my goals this weekend is to work on planning for the tutorial for for Jakarta E11 since
Yeah.
that's not actually out yet. So because there are some updates, and I was thinking the Jakarta data part is actually going to be new, so a whole new section, which is exciting.
That is exciting.
All right, cool. So we've also got some AI ML topics. I have the first one here. It's the TabNine, which is one of the several different AI coding agents. And they were actually one that's been around like since the earlier days, like when it was just them and GitHub Copilot, essentially. So they now have a tool or the feature to have AI agents that generate and validate code for Jira issues. So it's interesting that they just chose only Jira, but I kind of think it makes sense for the first version. So TabNine is one of those tools that has a little chatbot, and it also does code completion and stuff like that, you know, to help you write your code. And it learns from you and everything, just like a Copilot. But now they have agents that allow AI programming systems to generate code from requirements in Jira issues and validate human or AI generated code for those requirements. Now, I have not tried this yet. I've been wanting to, but haven't played with it yet. But I was thought this is kind of cool, especially since I've been talking to Neil about agents recently, and I was like, the timing is interesting. But this looks like it's fun to play with, and I think it's just included with an ordinary TabNine subscription, which is I think $20 a month or something. I'm subscribed to way many of these little agents just so I can get a handle on them. So that little one looks pretty interesting to check out. Next one is LangGraph for Java. So if you're doing RAG or any sort of LM stuff in Java, LangChain for J is one of the easiest ways to do it. You can also use Spring AI or there's a Microsoft one I forgot the name of all the time. And I guess now they're looking at the company behind LangChain is looking at ways to work with agents and graphs and things. So they have LangGraph for J. Now I have not worked with this, but I guess
we use LangGraph a lot, but with
okay,
Python.
So you can
Yeah,
explain.
I can.
Tell us what
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one does.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
cool.
This
Oh
is.
yeah, and also,
I'm really
Anil,
impressed
if you
with.
could also add what a RAG is, because I don't think
Oh yes, thank
yeah,
you.
I think that would be important as well. But yeah,
Yes, thank you.
let
Okay,
us
I'll
have
come
it.
back to
Anil.
the. I'll come back to that. So, LangGraph is a tool that we heavily use internally. That's what one of the things that we use to build the agent. So LangChain is a kind of a framework. It's like, what's the best way to describe it? It's almost like Log4j for LLM. What that means is that it can work with any LLM models. It has connected to every LLM model. So it's kind of a framework on top of that to build applications for LLM. LangGraph is a way you can kind of express your flow. Essentially, if you're building an application using AI that has many decisions tree, like a classic example, like booking, right? I need to get information out, then I need to check whether there's an availability, any sorts of workflow. It allows you to build that workflow as a graph.
Okay.
And each node in the graph is essentially a function. And that function can make an LLM call that can have a prompt file associated with. You can make an invocation, all that stuff. And LangGraph allows you to essentially take the output of one call and send it as an input to another call, if that makes sense. So in a nutshell, it's a great way to design relatively complex applications.
Okay. That's much better than I could have ever explained it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm very impressed to see that they're diving into Java. That's good to know. I mean, I'm assuming they're targeting Java crowd, obviously.
Well, they've had LangChain for J for a while, and they've actually been doing talks about it. So it's already caught on. Like I know a lot of people. So
yeah,
I think that's wise, and we're very happy about that.
yeah.
So a naive question on my part then, are these are frameworks that Java can use? It's not that Java is doing any LLM work or any kind of ML work. This is just sending the prompts over to some other engine to do the job, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, most of this modern LLMs have REST APIs. So I'm assuming at some point they're taking all of this and turning into a REST call for GPT or cloud.
Right. Yeah, and from that perspective, it doesn't really matter what language you use. Like
correct.
And I think they can do local LLMs too. Or do they use Olama or something?
Well, yeah, no, they can integrate with Olama. One of the thing that we're doing with our community, obviously, because we have lots of folks from Africa, India, and emerging developer community. Not everybody have money to drop in and buy all this stuff.
Right.
So we're kind of experimenting with Llama 3.2, which they call is a small large language model. This model's a footprint of like 2 gig, 3 gig. So you can download locally, essentially. It will be slow, but in theory, you can still run them locally. And you can use same code that you use for GPT for those models. That's the benefit.
I've definitely played with just using some of those with like the DevOps Genie tool plugin. And also just playing with them, randomly type in something. All right, those are 15.
I was just going to mention another small one that's very quick. If you download it to a local machine, I use Podman containers. If we download it to that, TinyLLM is a small LLM, but it's very quick if you're looking to just have something small. So,
how many parameters do you know?
Boy, I don't know how many parameters it has. I have to look into that.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I've been enjoying playing with this. And what sometimes I'll do is I'll just the same thing in different models and see how much worse the one with fewer parameters is.
I guess I just looked real quick. 1.1 billion parameters.
Okay,
that's nice.
What's the one that you like to use now? What is it called again? Llama.
So Olama is another framework,
right?
That allows you to. So one of the model that I think relatively does well is a Llama 3.2.
3.2, that's what it was.
which is a small large, which has 3 billion parameters. So parameter size essentially dictates how powerful that model is.
Isn't there some talk that that's not necessarily true anymore with some of the newer models? No, I mean, I only
I mean, no, I mean, I guess then it goes back to what Walt like knowledge-based large language models is. I think what people are doing is getting smarter now, which is you don't have to use one model for everything. So one of the things so down the line, if I want to make my agent more efficient, one thing I could do is offload some of the small tasks to small models and keep the heavy lifting for large models. So you can balance that out.
That's a really good point. And I guess, what is it? LangGraph for J would help with that.
Yeah, totally. It's the abstraction level. I'm a big fan of LangChain.
Nice. Okay, cool. So you had one here as well, which is the Llama 3.1, but this is a very different one, right?
Sorry, excuse me.
Yes. So NVIDIA is obviously jumping into the space. So we look into this space. I'll be being transparent. I haven't played with it yet. I want to in my list. So they have released this new 70 billion. We are talking about 1.5 and 3. This is 70 billion. Obviously, you cannot run it locally. I cannot. Any GPUs and stuff. But this model seems to be beating out GPT-4 and Claude in lots of benchmarks. So something that we definitely pay attention to this kind of model, especially in terms of code generation. So I was talking to my data scientist. He suggested we should play out with. Apparently, this model is really good at code generation.
Nice. I feel like every month or so there's like a new leader.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, cool.
It's good for us, people who like to play with stuff.
Yes, it's true. Very true. All right, let's do a lightning round Java platform, guys. So basically, JDK 23 came out in September. So it's been about a month since it's been out. And remember, every JDK release is a production quality release that you can use.
Right.
And there were a couple things I thought was cool. And honestly, one of them is something really simple, which is just markdown documentation comments.
Boo.
Boo. Well, I would prefer.
I'm an ASCII doctor, guys. So
I was going to say I would prefer ASCII doc, but I think for when it's like simple general purpose stuff, markdown is useful. So, and this is cool because JavaDoc was awesome when it came out, 20 something years ago, but the formatting in HTML is kind of a pain to do in your code. So Markdown is nice to use. So I'm looking forward to that one. Do you know about this other one, Danno?
Yeah, I know them all.
All right.
I've been riding the wave, man.
You
the
are.
JEP, the Java enhancement improvement. So implicitly declared classes and instance main methods. One of the things about that is that you could just, for your hello world, as an example, just get rid of everything. So you don't need void, you don't need static, you just do a main, and then you're just good to go. So if you're doing training of Java, you can get rid of most of the corrupt and it's still a running Java application. And this pairs nicely with a previous feature in Java in JDK 16, where if you have something simple that you need to do, then you can just type Java. You don't have to do a Java C. Just do a Java on a Java file, and then you're good to go. Yeah. So what we're aiming for, like I'm an engineer of Java, but what I think Java is aiming for, like if you ever take a look at a Python Flask app, for example, right, it's just, right, you just have some paths and you go do something with it, and you just type Python and you're ready to go. And Flask is like I wouldn't even say maybe it is a microservice framework, but it does web applications extremely fast. And I think Java wants a piece of that action. The ability just to write apps very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be great for just teaching because, especially if you have to compare it to like how easy it is to write like code in JavaScript or Python. You don't have to worry about classes. You just type the code in and then it runs, right? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, this will be nice. Looking forward to
Yeah.
that.
And I'll include one really quick here since
Mhm.
before the show, Nilanjan and I were talking about Victor Klang, who is now part of Java. And he wrote the specification for the JEP for gatherers, which is an intermediate operation for a Java stream. So yeah, check that one out. So that way you could do a group by without materializing your stream. You just, keep adding, keep adding, and keep adding.
That's a really good example because I've heard people talk about gatherers, but I couldn't really.
Yeah,
Since I guess I didn't actually think it was a podcast, so like I couldn't visualize. I'm like, okay, I can see
right.
I can participate in the stream, but I wanted like concrete use cases I could think of. So that's a good
Yeah,
one.
like group by, and because group by, you can only do a group by right now as a collectors. I think it's called grouping, and then you apply the function there. But you realize or you materialize the contents of your stream, which is a bummer because what you have to do then is, let's say you're doing a group by and you end up with a map, then you have to do entry set and then stream again and to continue the process. So instead of
Yeah,
materializing that, just keep on going.
nice, nice.
Yeah. And the Nilanjan will love it because it's just all functional, juicy goodness and awesomeness. Love it.
Yeah, Victor is perfect for that. Amazing stuff.
Nice. All right. Another one we had was in another feature of JDK 13. In the Oracle one, there is the Graal just-in-time compiler. What they've done, Graal has been sort of this extra JVM project from Oracle that was all about native compilation, but also had other cool features like polyglot, support for different languages like C, C++, Python, and also JavaScript and stuff. That's the part that I thought was the coolest, but they also have put a lot of energy into the native performance. And they now moved it into the JDK project. And so if you're using the Oracle JDK, you can now turn on the Graal just-in-time compiler, which has some improvements and theoretically should be faster. So I think that's a fun thing to play with if you're using the Oracle JDK. So that's there as well. Did you have anything to add about this last one here? Is this you, Danno? JNI restricted use?
Yep. So this is paired with the foreign function memory interface, which is the way that you interact with your C, C++, and other native code. So that's the way to go about it. And so JNI is being sunsetted for that.
It's about time because JNI has been a bane of Java for a long time, which I fortunately have never actually worked with.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to avoid.
I had a government job that was Java to C to Fortran. It was a fun job using creating a swing app for that. Fun stuff.
Fascinating.
That's crazy.
All right, you've given me an idea for a new episode, like random projects we worked on. We've got to do an episode on that. Like, what
Yeah,
was this interesting project you worked on, or weird,
but you know what? This is one of the things that just it's just amazing how a pithy sentence can travel so fast. And this was a time when I think it was still legitimate. Java's slow, and we need these computations done very quickly. In the end, for this project, I don't even think it even mattered. Like, how quick do you need it? And so that's why they said, let's keep it at Fortran because it can do computations very quickly, and our interface will just be in Java. And they liked Java Web Start to be, download a UI app off of the web. So they like that aspect of it. But in the end, it probably didn't matter. The computation
Well,
wasn't that complex.
There was a Java Champions gathering this week, and one of the things that especially Kirk Pepperdine, who's done a lot of performance stuff for Java, he was saying, a lot of what the this whole cold startup thing is like really not a big deal. Everyone's complaining about it for Java, he's like, there's all these people I work with that are working on, faster start times and everything. But, at the end of the day, that's not the start time for the JVM is not really your problem. It's probably all the other stuff that's in your app or in the operating system that you're using, or, something along those lines. So,
Right.
very true. All right. So, let's talk to Neil a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've got a few questions for you, and then
Yeah.
there's one big discussion topic, but anything else you want to talk about, we're happy
All
to
right.
chat. So my first question is, your company is called Tublian. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I know I could do a search, but
Yeah. No, you cannot. I mean, I think it's a meta word.
oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a meta word. So when I think it is going to go back to how we evolved. When I started Tublian, one of the reasons for doing this was I wanted to build a social network for software developers, like top of the top, like top 1%. The idea was we build this exclusive club. Then if anyone is looking for technical founder or a startup or whatever, they will come to this network. That was an idea because back in then I was fortunate enough to hang out with really, really smart people. So I wanted to build a community on that. So the idea of Tublian came through this word called B-Tubli. There is a word called B-Tubli. We was Googling randomly and found that word, which I thought was really nice. An Estonian word to say that someone who is a role model, a character who helps out. People say that B-Tubli, you should be like that person. So Tublian was about this person who is a mentor for others, who is doing amazing stuff in the world.
Okay.
So that was the origin of that name.
Okay, that's cool.
And B, it was easy to get the domain name.
Of course,
Yeah,
that's very
fantastic.
very important.
That's why.
Okay, cool. So you said you initially started it as a social network for top software developers.
So I always had this idea of because that's how I built my career. Idea was the developers are creators. No, we are not like YouTube creators or Instagram creators, but I always felt like that creator model that analogy worked very well. For reason being that I grew up in India, was nobody. I did into computer science. I like I told you, my friend showed me a computer. I got interested in it, started coding. I said, I like this stuff. Then I kind of hacked my way through the system. One of the hack I did is that started doing meetups, then open source that opened up lots of opportunities, travel, writing book, and all that stuff. So all this I felt like is a typically journey of a creator, someone who wants to build an online identity. And as the world becoming more flat and flat, I feel like how your online identity is very, very important. And developers, on the other hand, are really terrible at this. This is not my comfortable position. My comfortable is I wear headphones, play music, and code in the corner, and hope somebody will recognize my work. But I soon realized that's not the way the world operates. Nobody's gonna recognize you unless you show up and demo, hey, look all the cool stuff I built. So that was the general drive for me to build something for developers using which they can demonstrate their capabilities online. Hence this whole street cred thing that we talk about, credit scoring. So when I approached the folks I knew in US and other places, they said, I don't care about this because most of them have a really good social presence already. They're doing pretty good, and job market was rocking back in days. They said, why do I need to build social presence? I get 10 companies every day calling me. I don't care. But it was not by design, but as we building this, people from Africa and India started showing very interest to this platform. Okay, hey, I want to do this. I want to build my social presence. Can you help me? in retrospect, that idea makes a lot of sense for me because for some of these folks, this is the only way. Right? They don't have any job opportunities there. They think Tublian, if using Tublian, I can build my street cred, my online presence, then companies from Europe and US gonna come to me. That's essentially the user's drive.
Right.
So we got lots of traction there. So that's where we gradually focused on essentially how can we help people from all these places where your geographic location, your background, your education really doesn't matter, because coding is kind of universal, right? Let me help you present yourself. I keep the thing that we use in our users is, right, if I Google your name, will your name show up in the first page? That's your goal.
Okay. And if you have a common name, the question is, how easy is that to
do? So that started. Then the whole, I'm going to ramble a little more to come to the current point of agents. So beginning of last year, obviously, when GPT and others started popping up, oh, GPT can do this, I can generate web application with a single prompt, and all that started happening. We all have a bit of identity crisis in terms of like what that means to be a software developers now. My job was to take problems, solve that, and do stuff like this. Then we kind of do a little bit of going back and forth, and can I eventually figure out, no, this is just another tool in your toolbox. How can I use this set of technologies and tools to empower these people to build software at scale? So in a way, long-winded way, fundamentally, the reason I started Tublian was we wanted to redefine how software is built. And to build software, there's 3 core components, right? People, process, and technology. I started with people because I still believe people is a very important thing. Whatever we do, there is a human in the loop, and we'll talk about that more. I don't see we disappearing. I see there will be more need for developers. We'll come back to that. So we started with people. What we're now doing is essentially how can we empower them with all these tools so that they can build software at scale. Says eventually, I think this is going to be their superpower. That's what we're trying to do now. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. I like that. So I've got a couple of questions. First of all, what can you explain this street cred idea a little more?
Yeah. Now, so when it was the first bucket of problem that we wanted to solve is that to build an online presence, you have to demonstrate credibility. Right? You cannot be faker. You have to truly know what. So that's a table stake. You have to be really good at what you do. That's the first primary thing. Now, what does that mean to them? How can I say that I'm really good at it? I can tell you I'm really good at Scala, but how can I prove that to you, right? So we challenged the whole traditional model of resumes and biodata and all the stuff that people use. For us, it's great because I can put lots of companies and projects I've done. For folks that I closely work with, they're emerging devs. They're recently out of college. They came out of school. They don't have experience. So how do they demonstrate their credibility? So we banked on saying that, okay, one way to do that is open source. Open source, that's why open source is so key. That's how we started having conversations. So open source is a really, really good playground where there is a wisdom of the crowd baked in. There is lots of validation already happens among developers, not an HR reviewing your resume. A developer telling you're good or not, I think is more valuable. And one way to do that is somebody pushes a pull request to your repository and you accept it, that we consider as a good signal. So we use those signals to essentially calculate a score for the person. So it's like a credit score for developers.
That's a good way to think of it. I
Yeah,
like that.
that's
Nice.
pretty neat.
I got a hard question though.
Yeah.
How do you deal with racial and gender biases? So I think that was one of the things that because one of the controversial topics was evaluating a developer purely by their GitHub profile, but that had some issues where females would get gosh, how do I put that? They were criticized more in what they were doing, that it wasn't necessarily fair. Maybe some of the criticism was fair, but they got like really overly criticized for that, and then that just shut down, and not a lot of input from certain races, certain genders, and other things like that. When this thing gets super popular, how would you end up handling hard situations like that?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I mean, we probably inherited some of the problems that open source already have to our system. But we closely work with another group called She Code Africa. They're a huge group in there to see how we can kind of bridge the gap a little bit. So there is lots of helping hand we provide to do that, but it's definitely an issue.
Cool. Let's see, what else did I want to ask you? So I guess, two things. Let's start with, so you've got a lot of people that are trying to establish their street cred, that are starting out or more junior in their career. And I played with your platform. I by no means know all about how it works, but I played with it. And it is really nicely integrated into GitHub. Like you can see different, repos and integrate with it through there. But like where do you find most of the developers are focusing? Because there's all these different tech stacks and technologies. What do you see a lot of these younger developers as being proficient or interested in?
So the majority of them are front end and data.
Okay.
So front end is data. I get it. Obviously, there is a huge push for AI and Python. So we have lots of Python developers. Front end is something that I feel like, especially folks in Africa, because my team is also there. So I've kind of a viewpoint there. They dive into because that's the easiest thing to get started with. This is something maybe with recent things of Java and stuff might help in the future. But all you need is a browser to get started with web development. I mean, in theory. So those are.
I was going to say, maybe it also has something to do with like, with front-end development, there's the faster feedback loop in terms of just seeing, you can see what you made like quickly, So
that's amazing, powerful feedback, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Oh yeah. That's thanks for bringing that. That's another thing. So those two. So we have lots of JavaScript / whatever JavaScript flavor of framework popular. Then lots of Python.
Okay. Yeah, that does. I did one I've done a couple, but the last session we did, I noticed like there are a lot of people that were like, React Python, React Python, React Python.
Lots of them haven't even used Java. I mean, Java. I'm sure they have hard Java. Never used them.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I wanted to show is that at this point, I think all of us have worked with like lots of different things, so it's always good to have an idea. I was working on an iOS build script, and it's with this tool called Fastlane. That's Ruby. And I was like, I haven't used Ruby in a long time. But basically, I'm just using it as a scripting language for a build script, essentially. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. All right. So, so you have built this community, and I've seen that you've got all these people that are actually really active, which is nice. And then AI came along, everybody flipped out, when I think the whole industry collectively is still flipping out. And so
where do you guys stand on AI? I'm kind of curious, then I'll go into.
I'm trying to figure that out often. There's a reason, when I still enjoy really speaking about different topics at conferences, and when all the AI stuff took off, I was like, well, I know everybody and their brother is going to be, doing talks about how to write a chatbot in Java or in whatever language you want to. It's like, I don't think that's a very hard thing to learn, really, to be honest. It's another set of APIs that you need to use. Prompt engineering maybe is actually more to think about. But I was like, well, how is it going to affect us? How are all of these coding tools going to, how do they work? How are they useful? So I've been focusing on that. And so because I'm very interested not only in of course making my day-to-day development more efficient, and that of my customers. Some of my clients, I'm like, well, what tools are you guys using? Do you even know what tools you're using? Do you know if the people are leaking your IP to open API without? I mean, I know technically they say they won't use it to train if you use the API, but you need to think about that kind of stuff. But then, I'm trying to envision what it's going to be like in the future and what this means for teaching junior developers in our industry, people coming out of college, and things like that. And so I think what's going to happen, and you probably know a lot more about this than I do, but is I think, we're going to be using these agents to do a lot of different things. We're going to be using these tools and agents to do things. And the underlying platforms aren't going to be as important as they are now. But the problem will be that people will generate a lot of code and not really understand how it works. So that's going to be an issue. But a lot of it's going to be the constructs that we use are going to be higher level. So basically we're increasing the abstraction layer again. So when you guys were talking about, programming languages, ordinary programming languages being abstraction layer above assembly, and when you get down to that level, I remember way back in the day working on, I used to write Turbo Pascal code. And I remember sometimes I would get in the debugger and I would step into assembly code and I'd be like, I have no idea what's going on here. And it's going to be like that with these tools. You'll be working with like some high level AI abstraction, and then you'll step into like a Java framework or a Python framework or a JavaScript framework. And you'll be like, I don't know what's going on. Let me just ask the LLM to see if they can figure out what's going on here. I don't know. That's my take. What about you? You go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just saying I love the AI and I love ChatGPT, and it helps me out. And I think for some of the topics that I do know, it's absolutely great. But when it comes to the topics I don't know, I have huge amount of distrust, and gosh, there's another layer of complexity, and I don't think ML is ever, or LLMs are ever gonna do a replacement, just as things kind of change. But one of the other things that I wanted to bring up was it gets trained on past data. So if you're writing the Java wave of future JEPs, for example, one of the things that I asked about on an LLM was sequence collections, which I think just came out in 22 or something like that. And LLM just got it wrong. So, so if you're a company that's on bleeding edge APIs and things like that, LLMs aren't going to help you out quite as much.
But can't you just train an LLM on your new APIs?
Oh yeah, I guess you can. Yeah, but the way that the LLMs perform currently, it wouldn't have that information. Yeah.
Right.
Funny mentioned that we had a challenge last month. We called it Doc Genie, which is kind of uses. We developers have this issue, right? You go to LLM ChatGPT, ask for, hey, how do we use this API in React? And it'll give you a wrong version of API because it knows the old version of React.
Right.
So so I had one developer in our community build a tool where you essentially can. There came to the idea that wouldn't it be nice if we can feed in the package.json file or build file, which has all the version, and the tool is smart enough to know, I know what Daniel is using, and kind of train the model using RAG, whatever architecture, really doesn't matter. Then have this chat bot you can talk to, and it will always give you the API. I think it's a solvable problem. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I noticed a lot of the coding tools have been slowly, sucking up more of your workspace, depending on, different. So, we can suck up 5 files, or we can suck up the whole thing, or whatever they say. So I don't know if we're smart enough to do what you're saying, but I'm sure they will be if they, eventually.
So I think this tool's going to get better and better. I fundamentally, I believe in this because I fundamentally, back in there, still believe in that. What made a programmer really great? One of the reasons made a programmer, a developer great is that person has read lots of code. That's how you know what's a bad code, what's good code. Reading is how we learn, right? Going back to Victor Klang, if I look at Victor Klang's Scala code, I will know exactly. He writes beautiful code, by the way. oh, this is exactly how I should solve the problem, which turns this into a data problem, essentially. And these tools are really, really good at data. It can read all the GitHub repositories, all the code that's ever possible that I cannot do. So in that sense, in one day, I feel like this tool's gonna get better than me at building stuff. Then I don't have an answer to this. I struggle this with myself also, that one of the reason I enjoyed programming, or I started doing programming, is that I really got the kick out when I solved the problem. I coded something and it worked. That dopamine effect is what drove me, like, oh, this is cool, I'm solving problem. That was my reward. I mean, obviously money and everything was involved, but that's why I enjoyed this job a lot. I sometimes wonder, I use lots of, dog fooding, we use agent to build agents. So I do lots of stuff with that. I feel like some of this is going to be taken away from me, because this agent's going to be really good at solving problem. And I'm eventually getting very lazy. If it's more than 5 minutes, I say, okay, forget it. Let me ask this. So I don't know how I'm going to deal with that, but that's one issue. But I feel like these tools are here to stay, obviously. What's happening now is that it's almost becoming like I'm not a developer anymore. I'm becoming a lead, a manager. That I will not be surprised if a day comes where a senior software engineer's job is to kind of manage all these AI agents, assign tasks, provide feedback. That could potentially become a full-time job.
Yeah, I think the the ecosystem is just going to evolve depending upon how AI evolves. And I think there's always going to be the need for, like you said, some kind of a coordinator, senior engineer that can engineer the problem, because AI is very good at writing code, default code, but they're not very good. It's not very good yet at customizing a solution. And that's not to say that it can't get there someday, especially for organizations who have their own LLMs and are training those LLMs on their business models and whatnot. But I think that there's always going to need to be somebody there to guide it and probably do code here and there to try and repair it and make it do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I forget what I was going to say. Well, we can move on to the next thing now. So, so we talked about, I think most people who listen to this podcast know about like AI, coding assistants. Everybody's at least heard of GitHub Copilot or some other tool that does fancy autocomplete or ChatGPT chatbots or whatever. So what you have been experimenting with at Tublian, and others have been experimenting with as well, are actually agents that write software as well. And when you look at like the whole AI field, agents has been one of them for a long time. It's just that now when you combine them with LLMs, you all of a sudden have, lots more things they can do. Or at least from our perspective, from the stuff that we with writing code. So can you tell us sort of what a software development agent is, like how they work, how you build one? I mean, obviously not from scratch, but you don't have to explain the whole story of how to build one today, but just what do you do?
Yeah. So the fundamental difference between agents and copilots are agents are autonomous. So copilots are very interactive, right? You're actively having conversation with them on your cursor or VS Code, wherever you are. Agents on the other hand is kind of behind the scene. I mean, that's how our agent doesn't have a front end, honestly. The front end of an agent is GitHub. So one way this developer agent works is, at least I don't know how the others work, for our agent works is that typically when a customer comes in saying that I want to use your agent, or a developer wants to use it on their project, all they have to do is that assign that agent as a collaborator to a project. It has its own user ID. Then all you have to do, like any sprint meeting or any day, you just feel like, okay, this issue needs to go to, let me have an agent work on this. All you have to do is assign that issue to an agent. That's the trigger. And you do go back to whatever stuff you're doing. The agents being autonomous, it is now have this, there's essentially all agents have kind of a 4 thing, right? So first thing it's going to be doing, typically most of the agents, it has this this planning responsibility. So agents are really good at, I mean, that's how I feel like eventually the market going to come down to who has a better reasoning system. So agents will take that issue and break it down to tasks like you and I do, sort of doing internal thinking. How should I approach this? Then it goes to planning phase. It's a planning to implementation phase. In that phase, it's going to figure out how we're going to implement this. Now there are variations of agents here. If you're asking an agent to build a new web app, then it's a different type of problem. The agents that we are working on is to work on a legacy code basis. So in this case, the agent needs to go to code base and figure out which all areas needs to change. So those all things happens. Then third core important thing that most of the agents have is the capability to integrate with your tools. So agents are not only just sitting in a memory doing stuff, it will have capability to look into your CI/CD pipeline, run test, access terminal, some cases even go to browser to figure out the answers to the question. So to do all that stuff and finally produce a result. In our case, the result is PR request. It will create a pull request for you. So all this could be happening in matter of minutes while you're doing something else. So the difference here is, which took me a while to understand at scale, Kito scale is amazing here. Minutes is crazy. That means potentially, if I have enough bandwidth money in my budget here, I potentially could have spawn hundreds of these agents, go after my backlog and try to implement all the issues. So that's the thing here. The challenges now, I mean, obviously this sounds really good. Not every time this agent is going to be successful. And the best way I take analogy of them is that always think of these agents right now as an intern, a junior intern. So typically most of the agents, we have that too. We built a communication channel, back communication channel. That means while it's doing planning, in case it gets confused, it's going to reach out to you. In our case, it will add a comments to your issue page on GitHub.
How does it know when it's confused?
There are parameters you can build on the agent, the way you design the agent.
Okay.
So way we have designed the agent is that we have agents having conversation back and forth. So in part of that, it might be asking questions. If there's no answer, if it processes certain threshold, then we say we need some clarification.
Okay.
This is also designing back. This is also a trade-off because the biggest driver for agents is time saver. We don't want these agents to be too chatty also. Then otherwise I'm wasting my half a day teaching my interns. I'm not getting work done. You know what I mean, right? So those are the things. But anyway, it has a back channels that it can provide feedback to. But the pull request is also another mechanism. So it will create a pull request. Like any pull request, you can review, provide a feedback that will again trigger the whole process.
Fascinating.
So, so the way I've been talking about this, being a developer and all that, right? I mean, the way I think about this is that this is all good thing. I mean, I'm not to scare anybody. I feel this is a positive change for us because the way I've been treating these agents as do the stuff that I really don't want to do. Okay, right. So I can use these agents as an assist mode, right? There's a bug assigned to me. I don't want to do that root cause analysis or research. Go do that for me. Propose me how you're going to solve it. Then I'll jump in and take over or something like that.
Right.
So some way I'm teaching our community is that you focus on problem solving. You focus on your creativity, because what's happening is that I know 100 React API calls is not a skill anymore, right? Those are the things that agents can do really well. You focus on how you want to design it. What is the focus on more creative problems, essentially. That's how we're going to coexist.
And to me, I think also, you know, as someone who's worked with a lot of legacy code, I think there's going to be some things where like there's performance issues or other things that I think would be hard for an agent to figure out. No, that could just be me being naive, you know. But I feel like, if you're
Or
going,
why you think it's going to be hard?
I guess because it seems harder than like solving a more simple bug. But
So it's hard. I mean, it could become hard, but the way you, so there's another thing I learned. I think this will be really good for your viewers too, is so this agents makes lots of mistakes. Again, intern metaphor, I think is perfect. I mean, it's very new to this world of building a legacy, working with legacy code bases. So it produces amazing solutions like, holy shit, I haven't thought about that, to what were you thinking, right? It goes back and forth. It's kind of random because it's non-deterministic. I'm working with a non-deterministic, but one of the things that you have to constantly do is provide feedback. Agent needs to know where it went wrong. So it's going back to there are lots of stuff to talk about here, but in prompt engineering also is a classic. If an LLM is making mistake, fitting in the same prompt over and over again will not fix it. You have to tell what was the issue, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, in cases of like, if the implementation is wrong, typically we solve that problem is that we ask agent to run the test. If test failed, that means something is wrong. So that's how we provide feedback. In case of performance, you have to probably figure out that feedback function that you can fit in. If you can design that feedback function, it will figure it out.
Yeah, and I guess that was the other thing. So for verification, like, do you have to tell the agent to write a test, or do you write a test first?
We do both.
Agent.
No, I don't. I mean, I do when I'm writing my code, but the agents are smart enough. So if the project have test cases, our agent will figure out, is there any delta test cases that affects this change? It will go modify those test cases. If not, it has an ability to create new ones.
Okay, nice. And I know some agents or some systems use multiple agents for every issue they're fixing. Sounds like you use at least a couple, or do you have like many different types?
Many different types. So that's a good question too. So we do different types because of the feedback. That means every time we do any sorts of generation, that means creating a solution plan, implementation plan, code generation, whatever, I always have another agent coming back to validate, just to take care of the hallucination problems. This has been really, really good. I mean, you always have to have that feedback. So we have a QA agent that comes in and validates every time. If the solution matches the requirement, if the solution matching what you said you're gonna do, because sometimes it will say, I'll do this, but it doesn't, all the stuff happens. So we do that. But we have to take it the architecture even further down the line, especially for complex projects. So when we work with large legacy code bases, it will have multiple modules, right? One of the challenge we have now, eventually that will not be a challenge, I'm pretty sure, not infinite, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have an unlimited context window. But these models have a limit of how much it can hold in one shot. That's a challenge because you cannot just feed in your entire code base and say, go fix the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had to do a bit of engineering where the way the architecture is that there is a lead agent that spawns multiple dev agents based on how big the project is.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's almost built in hierarchy. That's how we scale.
That's how you use LangGraph.
LangGraph, yeah. LangGraph. Without LangGraph, I have no idea how we could have done that.
It's all coming together now. Okay, cool. So there is this SWE benchmark. And again, all the stuff we're talking about will be in the show notes at stackedpodcast.com, STACD podcast.com. So have you tried putting your agent on the SWE benchmark? It's for those who don't know, it's a benchmark for solve for agents essentially. And basically looks at how well they solve GitHub issues. And there's a lot of things in here I've never heard of before. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on that benchmark?
I think it's great. We haven't. I want to some point, but I'm kind of a bit skeptical around this a little bit because it's it could be overfitted in terms of I feel like some of these large language models have already seen those problems before.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's so I don't know. I have reservations. Let's
Yeah, I
leave
can
it to
see
that.
I've also noticed that, I mean, I think it's only like a set of issues and I think they're all Python. At least they were last time I looked. Um, which I kind of feel like it should be more representative of like the 24 other platforms that people might use. I'm just mentioning a random
Well,
one.
these models have been trained. These models are really good at front-end and Python projects.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what's been. It knows Java. I feel like it struggles with Kotlin a little bit. I go back to what Daniel was saying. I think it struggles a little bit with some of the new model languages.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, there's not as much stuff to look at, right? So
Yeah.
makes sense. Wow. Okay. I love thinking about this stuff. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier, no, was this, when I look at this, what I think about, obviously it's a very different way of building software, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have a problem in the open source community with lots and lots of issues which nobody has fixed. Or we don't have the resources. Every time I do an npm build or npm install, I see like this project looking for funding, this project looking for funding, this project looking for funding. This dude needs a new job. I'm like, damn, it's like we're relying on so much infrastructure that's not does not have the resources to actually maintain that infrastructure. And maybe we shouldn't rely on this many. Maybe every simple project I do on front end doesn't need 400 packages. Maybe on Java, maybe I don't need 24 libraries, but that's the way it is. And I can think of using agents to handle a lot of the low-hanging fruit that a lot of these open source projects, have sitting out there. So um,
I agree with you. And I think it's such a brilliant idea. I would love for you to, I mean, I've been talked about this. I'll give you access to the agent soon. I think not many agents are free because again, the limitation is the large language models.
Yep.
But I think people are getting creative, like I said, mixing small and large. So one of the things that we have done, you might enjoy this, is for this Hacktoberfest, we give access to our agent to some of the developers here. To not focus on the problem that you're talking about, focus on a different problem from developers' perspective. When a new folks come to the open source, one of the biggest challenge is to navigating unknown code bases, right? Oh, I want to contribute to Jakarta Apache project, this and that, right? These projects have been around for some time. Jumping in, this for us also is struggle to jump into any unknown code base and figuring out what's going on. So we limited the power capability, set up a special mode for this agent. What it does is that it helps, all developers have to do is point to an issue and repository. This agent kind of helps with the implementation plan.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So they want to contribute, and this will do the initial work of like almost another engineer coming in. Let me tell you, look into that file. There is a problem, something like along those lines. So I had a meeting with them a couple of days back. Some of those folks says that we used agent and successfully contributed to open source.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's a big time saver too, because like
Totally.
whenever I'm in like that lead role, I'm often the person that's writing like, okay, and now when you implement this, these are the things you need to worry about because it takes some time, but I know I can figure it out faster than the person I'm assigning it to. So
right.
Nice.
That's very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna try and move on. But any parting words, or Josh, Dano, any other random questions you want to pick Neil's brain with?
Now I got mine out, but these are some of the things I'd have to take a look at because all these ideas are new to me. But I do like the idea on that last part there with being able to build in all those, hey, here are the traps that you may have as
Yeah,
a developer. I love that a lot.
nice.
And I find that that bench with all the issues and that the AI could LLM could resolve, I think that just blows my mind. I'm looking at all this stuff.
Yeah, so much better than a wiki. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to query documentation. I've
Yeah,
I've
that's a
been
good thing.
trying that with Amazon Q for some AWS stuff. It's not always useful, but sometimes it is. So, and any parting words? No, not. We're not. We still got a couple of things to talk about in the podcast, but just to this discussion.
So one thing that I recently posted on LinkedIn that might be useful. So fast forward, where we see ourselves or developers moving to. I want to go back to what I mentioned about being creator, right? Creator class. I feel like what I started with, I can see that vision now very clearly. What that means is that I feel like developers going to truly become the creator class, because all of this changes has another second order effect in the market, which I think is very critical. That means is we can do more with less. What that means is that I feel like the size of the team is going to start shrinking, because we don't need 100 people to build this anymore, right? And that have consequences in the market. And especially the type of folks that I work with, one of the things that I've been encouraging them to do is that go independent. I think that's one of the way to think through this, is that, wait a minute, now I have a superpower. I can have all these agents. And I think this agent's going to eventually specialize. Some agents will be, like Josh was saying, some agents will be specialized in backend or database, and some will be front end, as we narrow the expertise. You can surround yourself with all these agents and build what took team to build. A single person can do that in the future. That means you now, instead of doing one project, you could actually do 10 projects. That's how you maximize your value. So that's the future I feel like we're heading to.
And when I think about that too, it's like, on the one hand, you're right, teams will shrink, right? And unfortunately for us, it won't mean that, it's really, it won't be like, well, we can't get enough developers like it's like it usually is. But I think what's going to happen is there are some organizations where the teams will shrink because they don't really need as many people, right? Especially ones where they're not really that interested in IT or software. They just need it to get the job done. These are some of my clients. It's hard to get them to use like actual coding standards and stuff. But since the ability to write software will increase, I think the desire for it will increase. Like there's just going to be so many more things happening. So it's going to be sort of a two-pronged effect.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So. Well, if anyone wants to see more about what Nil is working on, you can go to tublian.com, Tublian.com. You can sign up there with your GitHub account and learn more about what all the cool stuff he's doing. You also have AI tools to help you do learning, like learning paths, essentially. And I thought there was some other, oh yeah, you have that new tool that helps you with looking at resumes and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of cool stuff there. All right, so let's run to picks and then wrap up. Josh, you have pick number 1.
All right. Well, first off, thank you again for all that great information. That website is awesome. I've been looking through it, and I will continue to look through it. So thanks, Nil. So my pick is actually just Kotlin's website. I went there earlier this week just to see what was the latest, actually couldn't believe that on the front page now you can just scroll down and start typing Kotlin in and it will run. You can download the code, you can do lots of things. So I know that lots of websites, including Java, now Dev Java, has a playground, but I thought that the Kotlin site is just taking it to the next level by making it that much easier to just dive right in. And hey, this is a new feature that is in the latest release of Kotlin. Here's what it is. They put it right in your face, and then you can start to play with it and see how it's going to work for you. So just take a look at it. I thought it was a really nice facelift on the website. Not sure how long it's actually been in place like that, but it looks really good.
Yeah, this is nice. Cool.
I'm trying not to upwindmanship sort of thing, but Scala has always had Skoski, which I've always been impressed with. It's a full screen IDE as well. I love it, and I think it helps promote languages, and I love it during presentations. So if I ever find myself doing more and more Kotlin, I need that for presentations. I think it's always a good thing just to be able to design things on the spot. Do you know, Josh, if there's a link to it? Like if you have a session in this Kotlin editor, do you get a unique URL that you could say, hey, check this out?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I wonder.
The TypeScript playground does that, I think. If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I've used that before in TypeScript talks.
Yeah,
so.
I'll give it a try. Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a playground link on there, and I wonder if you can go ahead and use that playground link to export it.
Yeah, there's a copy link option.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that actually does what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I need
guessing
to
as well.
more. Oh, well. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What's next? Oh yeah, I had a couple. It's completely unrelated to what anybody's been talking about, but that's the beauty of picks. So I have been spending in the last several years time trying to optimize everything I do. And one of the ways I've tried to do this is with keeping track of my sleep. So if you have like an Apple Watch, there's built-in sleep tracking now. And obviously with a Fitbit, you can do that. And before the Apple Watch added sleep tracking, there was this tool called Auto Sleep. And I've been using that for a long time. And so it can either use the built-in sleep tracking in the Apple Watch or its own sleep tracking. But it gives you this cool display, which will pop up.
That doesn't do it with your background.
I was hoping that would work with my background. All right. Maybe I'll put a screenshot on this. I'll put a screenshot on the screen on the notes at stackpodcast.com. But anyways, it basically keeps track of your sleep every night and gives you a sleep score, tells you how well you've done with deep sleep, all that kind of stuff. And it's got a really nice layer of infographics on top of it. So it's just a great tool. And then they have a tool that works with it called HeartWatch that does a lot of the same stuff, but keeps track of your heart rate, how much you exercise, all that kind of stuff. And the visualizations on this stuff is great, and it gives you scores and every day. So if you like keeping track of that stuff and you have Apple Watch, you should check out Auto Sleep and HeartWatch.
Nice.
Yep. All right, Danno, you're up.
Very nice.
All right. I forgot what I'm up on. Oh yeah, the simple web server. I gotta say that this is one of the finest JEPs I don't think anyone's ever going to use. But I've been doing a lot of architectural design patterns. And at times I just need a web server that is simple, that I just need to get out the door, that has the kind of just some programming flow of what happens. So recently I did one where I want to be able through environment variables to say 60% of the time you'll get a 200 OK with this payload, and then 20% of the time you'll get a 500, and then 20% of the time is going to be latent and with a certain amount of time. And I programmed that in, and I was looking at mock server, which I really like. Mockserver.org, I believe is what it is. And I was taking a look at WireMock. Those are canned answers, and they do pretty good. But I didn't want a canned answer. I wanted percentages. And I didn't want to go down the road for any of them because things started getting complicated. Then I just realized, oh my gosh, simple web server is it. And it's the most wonderful JEP. And so what I do is I just create a simple web server, Dockerize it. And now I could just put this into any kind of architectural proof of concept. Here's what happens when 20% of the time we fail. And, then I can, the rest of the architecture can react accordingly to it. I use it for circuit breaking and just to provide a proof of concept there. And I'm always going to use it, and I love it. And I think you should too. And then the other thing, self-hosted, during our conversation here, I've been watching some YouTube videos on doing self-hosted LLMs, and there's some options there. There's some YouTube videos, and I'll put that on the show notes. One of them that was interesting is they evaluated a really cheap server self-hosted that you could have within your own home to something that's like $15,000. So
cool. Yeah,
there is LLM hosting, self-hosting. I think we had talked about self-hosting before, which is, try to get off of all these cloud environments because they're a-holes and they just, either take your data or, change the rules on you.
It's just expensive. I mean, that's really,
and it's expensive. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, please do, because I've actually been thinking about that, especially for, just local stuff I'm doing with the local code base. I don't want to wait like a minute or two for my MacBook to figure out what's going on. I want to put it on.
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so let's wrap up. We've got, for those who are interested, we have a couple other podcasts that are in our network, in the Pubhouse network. There's the Off Heap podcast and the Java Pubhouse podcast. You can find them all at pubhouse.net, or is it javapubhouse.com? Sorry, I lied. I thought there was a .net in there, but I lied. Okay, javapubhouse.com. And we have some events coming up. I think these first ones are yours, aren't they, Danno? Yes, take it away, Danno.
Yeah, probably. So DevOps Vision, which is coming December 2nd through 4th. So we just talked about DevOps and MLOps. I have a MLOps that I'm currently in the process of giving one session coming Tuesday on how to deploy models and how to catalog models, how to catalog your data, and how to do deployments and how to do serving models and all that other good stuff. So that will be there. That will be my first in-person for my MLOps workshop. Tech Leader Summit is for more of the leadership sort of thing. I don't do anything there. And then ArchConf is for architecture-based stuff, and I'll be doing things like domain-driven design and a few other things there.
Those are all in Clearwater, Florida, right?
All in Clearwater, which I think just missed the hurricane because I think it was more in Sarasota, but Clearwater got hit as well. But I think everything's fine.
Yeah, my parents live close to there, so I was watching that whole area the whole time.
Did they come up to seek shelter up in Virginia or no?
No, they're like 50 miles from the shore, so they just hunkered down.
Okay.
So, yeah. Cool. We've got the Jakarta one live stream, December 3rd. And I don't know if I'm speaking at that. I don't think I am. Are you, Josh?
Actually, the CFP is closed now, and I think they're going to have 10 sessions. I'm not speaking at it. But we're finalizing the list right now. So
okay, because I was like, I think I did submit, but I don't know if I had very good talks for it. So we'll see. But anyways, this is a virtual conference all about Jakarta and Jakarta EE microprofile and related technologies.
Yes.
And that's December 3rd. J Champions Conference, which will be early next year, January 23rd, 24th, 27th, and 28th. That's where you get to hear from all of us Java champions, talk about lots of really interesting talks, at least the last couple ones I remember. I don't think this, if you're interested in speaking at that and you're a Java champion, the CFP is still open. So
sweet.
And you wanna round us out there?
Sure, yeah. So on No Fluff starting next year, we have Twin Cities, aka Minneapolis, March 7th through 8th. And then we have Pacific Northwest coming back to Seattle, March 21st through 22nd. Then Gateway Software Symposium in St. Louis, April 4th or 5th. And we're going to go to Nilanjan's neighborhood in Columbus, April 11th and 12th.
I should mention, I realize I left out some of the fall ones, but Code Mash will be.
Oh yeah, Code Mash, absolutely. That's in January.
Yeah.
That's a good one if you like snow and water parks. Yes, you can do both.
Every time I go there, I'm like, I really should bring my family, but then I don't.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
It's one of the weird things is the swimming part, and like yeah, people have a good time there. But the steam, man, that part is so weird. Just like it's like -20 outside. People are swimming, and then that steam because it's cold outside. That steam just stays
That
in there, and it's such a weird feeling, but it's cool at the same time.
Yeah, that whole thing is weird. I don't think they did that last year. Save money. I think they didn't rent out the water park part, but
Oh,
yeah,
they did it? Oh, okay.
but it was weird when I saw it. I did go there one year when they did that.
Yeah, yeah. Do you go to that Nilanjan or still a lot or no, not really?
But Code Mesh?
Code Mesh, yeah.
I don't do many conferences, but I've done the last one.
Oh, you did the last one?
Yeah,
That's how we met.
yeah, that's how we met.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
funny because people are wearing shorts inside, but outside is snowing. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is weird.
Yeah, that's a fun conference. I don't think they did not accept my talk this year, so I went a couple years in a row, but not this year. So
How's conferences are doing in general? Because I know in Code Mesh, the attendance kind of numbers are shrinking a little bit.
I think
All of
it's
them
been
are
tough.
in the US. So
Yeah.
we're
Really?
trying to claw
Yeah.
our way back. Yeah.
Yeah,
I see.
and I was talking at the Java Champions chat this week. It's like I don't think it's as bad in Europe. I think it's more in the US as having
Definitely.
a
I don't
conference
know what it is.
issue. Yeah, and I don't.
I have some guesses, but they're probably all wrong. But
Yeah, it's
No
complicated.
Fluff, Dev Nexus. We went Pratik and Vincent did a JConf
Yeah.
Dev in
Oh yeah,
Dallas.
how did that go?
That was small as well.
Okay.
I participated in Venkat's last week. It wasn't big, but it wasn't small. He brought in some good
Right.
numbers. He carries a good name, so
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
so he brought in some
Yeah, I bet
good
that was
folks there.
good.
yeah. I thought about going to that. Yeah. So was that was that as awesome as I would imagine
It
was?
was awesome. That was one of my favorites. He brought in speakers that um just I've never seen before. I've never met Dave Thomas, for example.
Yeah, it's
There
been a long
was
time.
from ThoughtWorks this lady named Vanya and talked
Hmm.
about um, some of the things that ThoughtWorks does as far as security, and I was blown. I learned something called reback, which is relational based access control, which is your access control is just based on who you know and you know who's your supervisor and where you are in that relationship. And based on that relationship, you get certain accesses on how you log in.
Fascinating.
So it's role based is like really thick
Right.
and just coarse, and attribute is very fine grained. Well, this one is just where are you in this relationship, and based on that, you'll get an access based on that.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
All
learned so much
right.
in that one, so that was really good.
Yeah, I hopefully if he does it again, hopefully I'll get to come. So
Yeah,
um all right. Well, I know this wasn't as short as I'd hoped, but it was really interesting. So
love it.
there's that. Thank you very much, Neil, for joining us and hanging out for a long time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
And yeah,
It
I
was
think
fun.
giving us our listeners and us a lot of stuff to think about, which is great.
Cool.
And I think we should have you on again in a few months to see sort of where things are. So because 6 months, who knows what'll happen.
That's a long time.
Yeah, indeed. All
Um,
right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And we will see you next time. And remember, you can always
thank
find us
you.
at
Thank you.
stackpodcast.com. All right.
That's it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh, that was a
Bye.
nice send out
Yes,
there.
there's my
Hey, woohoo!
All
All
right.
right. Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Wait, hold on one second here. Adjust my background and effects. All right, Alex, say hi.
Hey. Hi.
Hey,
This is
bud.
Alex. That's
How are
Danno,
you?
Hi,
and that's
Danno.
Josh.
Hi, Danno and Josh.
Hey, bud.
Hi there.
Yes, Alex is 11 and tall, right?
Nice.
Yes. Yes. All right, cool. Well, thanks guys. This was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I love talking to Nil, so I got to talk to him all day probably.
Yeah, it
So,
was a great conversation.
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks guys.
Excellent.
All right, and we'll get this one up sooner. Look, I say that every month, but who knows? Maybe it'll happen this time.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, have a good
I'll try
weekend.
not to eat
Sounds
my
good.
sweater that much. That's a habit
Which
I
is
have.
funny. That's just so
Yeah,
funny.
every time I have these strings and I'm concentrating, I'm like, oh.
I was like, how long is going to do that?
No, I do that all the time. I have some weird idiosyncrasies. One of the weird ones is like, what do you do with the sauce after you have sushi?
What?
You eat it?
I
With-
drink it. Yeah, like I drink it
Yeah.
afterwards, like
Yeah.
because I put the
Especially-
wasabi in it.
Yeah, with the wasabi, it's great.
Yeah, but afterwards, because I have some extra, I just take that little plate and I'm like,
You know, so do I. So high five, virtual high five.
nice.
Yes.
Wasabi high fives.
I think I did it this week actually. So yes.
Yeah, you don't want to go to waste, right?
Oh no, it's good
So much
stuff.
maximum flavor there.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, maybe I'll go tomorrow. All right. Cool.
All right. See you later.
Have a good one.
All right.
Take
bye-bye.
care.